Hey guys, it's Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a wonderful day wherever you are. I hope you're well and I hope you are safe. Thank you for joining me. Very special class we have today in the kitchen. I'm calling this Christmas cake version 6. I've done so many versions of this Christmas cake, but I believe that this is hands down the best version that I've done. So originally this Christmas cake recipe was handed down to me to protect and to look after. And that was done by Mahei's mom. She handed me down this recipe because she is literally like the best Christmas cake maker I personally know. So she handed me down her recipe and I was so honored with that. And when I got her recipe, of course I had to take the gluten out of it and I had to take out the refined sugar, make sure there was no dairy, make sure there was no grain. But then I kind of kept on going one step further, and this recipe you're going to learn tonight is, as I say, I think it's version 6, my Christmas cake recipe, but it is amazing. It is going to give you the most moist, super moist, really tender, so decadent, so incredibly rich fruit cake. You're gonna love it. It is amazing. Now I know for some of you who may be watching this, fruit cake may not be your thing. There is no alternative. You can't take the fruit out and replace it with something else. It is what it is. And fruit cake, as we know, is a Christmas thing. It is, it's been around for a couple thousand years, Christmas cake or fruit cake. And it has been very popular, especially in the UK, Australia and New Zealand. We kind of all grew up with that little bit of fruit cake. But it usually had lots of sugar, because that's kind of what it was. It was fruit, dried fruit, which has already got naturally occurring sugars. And then they added more refined sugars, and they put lots of gluten in there, and lots of, so a lot of it had alcohol as well. And what you basically ended up with is a very a sort of cake that was very good at lasting for a long time, because it was so macerated or marinated in booze and sugar that it just lasted forever. So this cake will still last a long time. That's why it's perfect to make it now, because it's going to give you 4 to 5 weeks pre-Christmas. If you can hold off that long, it is quite difficult, before you slice into it, and by then it's going to give it a time to really mature, which is just perfect. So the recipe is not that difficult to make. There are a few ingredients involved, but the first thing I want to teach you guys is how to line your tin the way that I was taught. So a very traditional way of lining your tin. So if you want to come on down to my bench, let's get into the tin lining process. As you can see, what I have here is my cake tin that I'm going to be using. And the first thing you're probably going to notice is it's actually quite a small one. It's not a very big size tin. And I think I measured it. It's only about 16 centimeters, which is about 6.5 inches across. So it is quite small, but what it gives you with this particular recipe is it gives you a really high cake, and it looks really impressive because it's really thick. And I just love that. And I find that it helps to hold in the moisture as well. So up to you what size cake tin you use. If you obviously use a wider one, like a normal 20 center cake tin, you're going to get a thinner result, which means you don't have to bake it quite as long, but you're still going to get a gorgeous cake. So it doesn't matter too much what size. I just prefer the small size because I love this little short, this little, like, not very round but quite high cake. It looks fabulous. So first thing I want to do, as we're saying, is think about lining our tin, and this is what I was taught in how to line the tin. So I'm going to go completely traditional when it comes to lining the tin. So I have here, 3 layers which I've cut into rounds, 1, 2, 3 pieces of my baking paper that I've cut into rounds, because what I want to do essentially is I want to have 3 layers of paper on the inside and 3 layers of paper on the outside. What that is then going to do is it's going to allow the cake to cook very gently. I want to have like a buffer between the cake and the metal, because the metal is going to get really hot and it can potentially dry out the outside of your cake. So this whole concept of triple lining, that's what it's for. It's to protect that cake from getting too dry as it bakes in the oven for a decent amount of time. So just a little bit of non-stick. I'm just using a little bit of, actually just olive oil, and it's just going to help me to glue down my 3 layers. So we're going to put the base in first. Just cut yourself a nice square, as evenly as you can, so you get a really great shape from your cake. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing with the sides. And once again, you're just going to do 3 layers around the sides. That's when this glue, I call it, cooking spray, comes in really handy, because it does literally act like glue, and you can go along, and even if you want to actually spray the baking paper, and it just helps it to stick. And yep, you're looking for that 3 layers on the side and 3 layers down the bottom. That's what you're after. Now your cake is lined on the inside, your cake tin, but we're also going to line it on the outside. Once again, we're going to create as gentle as possible cooking, because we do not want to dry out the cake. We want to keep it lovely and moist. So once again, we're going to go with the magic number 3. I've got 3 pieces of newspaper. What have I got here? The St. George and Sutherland Shire Leader. It's coming in very handy for lining my cake tin. So 3 pieces of your favorite newspaper. And all you need to do is kind of wrap it up. You might need to either enlist someone to help you here, or what I do is I kind of just tuck it in and hold it against my belly, which just means that I've got enough room to then use a piece of kitchen twine. And you just want to, as delicately and as forcefully as you can, whoops, without losing the inside, of course, I'm going to put that back in. You want to just wrap up the paper just to make sure that it's just stuck on. It's not going to go anywhere as it's baking, which is perfect. And make yourself a wee knot. And what you've essentially done is you've just, like I said, you've just created this great buffer zone, which is what we need, is to have a good buffer zone so that our cake cooks nice and gently, nice and delicately. And as I said, this is a traditional way of doing it. Some people, and I have done it in the past too, actually use cake boxes to make their cake in. You don't have to do all the layers, because obviously when you're baking something in wood, and those cake boxes are really good if you're baking under 150 degrees Celsius, so it's for gentle bakes. So something like a Christmas cake, which sits in the oven at 120 degrees, which is 250 degrees Fahrenheit, is actually perfect if you do want to cook in a wooden box. Comes out really, really lovely. But if you don't have a wooden box, this is the next best thing, is that you triple line your cake tin on the outside and then on the inside. So I'm going to pop that off to the side. That is done. Happy with that. I'm also going to be looking at creating, obviously, the cake now. You've noticed I've got my pot on, because it will be brought to the boil for a little bit of time. So I'm going to work directly into my pot, weighing off all the wonderful ingredients that's going into our cake today. So in the recipe, I'm going to leave it completely up to you what dried fruit you decide to use. I am using today, I have, so I found some organic sultanas at Costco, and they are fabulous. They're Australian sultanas, available, yes, at Costco, and they just taste wonderful. So if you are looking at fruit, obviously any dried fruit will do, but it's really hard to go past either raisins, sultanas, or currants. They tend to be definitely somewhere in the mix there. So you want to do a total of 550 grams of fruit, which is 1.2 pounds. We go straight into our pot. So I'm using, as I was saying, I am using sultanas, Aussie sultanas. I also found these at Costco. I'll show you what they were actually, so you can see. This is a dried apricot. Once again, organic dried apricots that I found at Costco, and I was so incredibly impressed with the flavor. They almost taste like tea. So if you buy something to make, if you're making up your own fruit mix, just chop them through. Just chop them through. Remember, you're just going for that kind of 550 gram total weight. And yes, dried apricot, but I know that normally we think of dried apricots as being those bright orange things that have had all the sulfur added to them. These are completely natural, and they have almost, like I said, almost like a tea flavor to them. They're stunning. So a bit of dried apricots goes in there to make up to my 550 grams. And the other dried fruit that I thought I would add in is, once again, from Costco. They've got some good dried fruit. I've just got a dried organic fig. Looks like that, obviously. When you are preparing the fig, if you decide to use fig, it is gorgeous. just take off the knobby little end and discard that. And once again, just kind of chop your figs through. So you could also use, of course, as I was saying, you could use currants, you could use raisins, you could use any type of dried fruit that you particularly like. Just make sure there is no sugar added, because sometimes food manufacturers want to add sugar to what is already a very sugary product because it's basically just dried fruit. So gosh knows why they want to add more sugar to it, but they do. So just make sure, whatever you're buying in a packet, read the label just to make sure there's no added sugar. Sometimes those fruit mixes that you can buy already pre-made have sugar added into them, so be very wary there. And of course you could also add a type of mixed peel into here if you like mixed peel, which is quite traditional as well. So you need 550 grams, which is 1.2 ounces of mixed fruit, dried fruit of your choice. The next thing that you're going to be thinking about adding, and for this one, I wouldn't compromise on the type of dried fruit. I absolutely recommend that you add at this point 250 grams of pitted and sliced prunes, so really moist prunes. And 250 grams, about 8.8 ounces, that is going to go in. Those prunes are going to that's what helps to give the Christmas cake a really dark color. It also helps to keep it lovely and moist. Basically, you're making plum pudding, right? Because that's what the dried prunes are. They're plums. So that one goes in there as well. Do I need this? Yes, I do. So that's all the dried fruit, but I definitely would not compromise on the prunes. Prunes are necessary because they just give it the most moist flavor. It is so decadent once you add those prunes, so definitely add them in there. Just remember, pitted and sliced through with your prunes. So the next thing we're going to add into here is a little bit of fiber syrup. So I'm going to be adding in 70 grams. That's what I need my scales for. 70 grams of fiber syrup goes in. This is going to help to create a lovely moist environment is there, because the fiber syrup not only gives it a little bit of sweetness, but it also helps to keep it lovely and moist. So it's very important to add the fiber syrup. And I'm also going to add in some erythritol is going in there. 0 is sugar. And for this one, we just want 50 grams of our erythritol. Goes in there. It's about that much. Lovely. Thinking about some spices, of course. What is Christmas cake without spices? I'm going to be adding 3 spices into our Christmas cake, and I reckon these 3 spices are the Christmas spices. So you have nutmeg, of course, we have mixed spice, and we have cinnamon. So these 3 spices to me literally are Christmas all rolled into one. And with the spices, we're just going to be putting in, do you have a tea towel, yes? 1 teaspoon of each, but I am going for a heaped teaspoon of each of these 3 spices. They're going to create a lovely, lovely flavor, because once again, that's what Christmas cake was. It was spices, fruit, booze, sugar, and gluten. So we don't have the sugar, we don't have the booze. Well, you can add booze. I'll show you where you can add booze just in case you want to. But we are definitely not losing out on the spices. So those 3 spices go in there. I'm also going to be adding in, for moisture, I'm going to be adding in a little bit of apple puree. You could use pear puree if you want to make your own pear puree, but unsweetened, of course. And we're going to be putting into there 125 grams, which is 4.4 ounces. Oh, that was almost perfect the first time. There we go. Fantastic. All right, that is done. The last thing that we're going to be adding in, the second to last thing we're adding in, is a little bit of liquid, because remember we're going to be putting this on here and then putting it to the boil. So we do need a little bit of liquid. Now originally, in my original recipe, I said to use water. I've now taken that up a notch, and my new suggestion here is actually to use tea, and I have made yogi tea, because yogi tea is basically spices and ginger. What could be more perfect? Instead of adding water, is you add yogi tea into here, and so you're just adding more and more wonderful flavor. So I am adding in 300 mils of yogi tea. You might want to add, oh, I haven't got enough. Where's the rest of it? Here it is. Need to add a bit more. Lucky I had some left in my pot. You could add, normal black tea. You could do green tea. You could do lemon ginger tea. But why not? Instead of just having boring old water, why not actually create something really, really exciting and add your favorite tea. And for me, my favorite tea 100% is yogi tea. I love it so much. And I just think all those flavors just work so incredibly well with what's happening in here anyway. So at this point in time, I've got it now on the cooktop. I've got it on a medium heat. And what you want to do, give it a bit of a stir. You just want to get all those spices mixed in. And you want to bring this mixture to a boil. Once it has come to the boil, you want to turn it down to more of a simmer, not a rapid boil, more of a simmer. And you want to leave it simmering away for 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, that fruit's going to begin to soften. It's going to suck up all those wonderful flavors that we have in there that now mix into the, through the fluid. So, we've got the yogi tea and all the spices, and we've got that apple puree in there as well, the erythritol, the fiber syrup. So we want that fruit to really soak into all that liquid. So bring it to a simmer, bring it to a boil, then turn it down to a simmer and allow it to gently bubble for 10 minutes. But keep an eye on it, stirring it often, because it could catch potentially, because there is quite a bit of stuff going on in here. You don't want to just walk off and leave it and have a black spot on your pot. So give it a stir every now and then, keep an eye on it, but you only need to do this for 10 minutes. So I'll show you what it looks like once that's been on for 10 minutes. Lovely, dark and rich, right? You see it's sort of soaked up quite a lot of the liquid, which is what you want it to do. So it's soaked up a lot of the liquid. In fact, what I am going to do is I'm going to transfer it into this bowl. If I have a spatula. Yes, I do. So you can see what happens next. So once you bring it to the boil and then you simmer it for 10 minutes, then you need to turn it off and just let it sit in the pot for about 60 minutes just to cool down, and also just to continue that moisture being soaked up by the fruit. Really important you let it cool down. Sometimes what I like to do is actually at that point is leave it overnight to really soak up those flavors. This would be when you add booze. If you're adding booze, this is when you'll do it, right at this point now, once it's had a chance to cool down and before you add the rest of the ingredients. And when I talk about booze, I know some people go with brandy, some people go with whiskey, some people go with port as well, or a liqueur. I will leave that up to you whether you're going to add booze or not. If I was adding alcohol at this point, I would probably add a really delicious port, and because it kind of tastes like raisins anyway, and I'd probably add between 50 to 100 mils. So that is up to you. As I said, I'll leave that up to you whether you add booze or not, but this is the point where you would do it. So let me just take this out so you guys can see exactly what's going on. We'll flop it into here, and I normally do 3 to 4 portions of this cake at the same time, because that's how much you can fit into this pot. So I normally do quite a few, 3 to 4 at the same time. Okay, so that's what it looks like. You can see that it's really soaked up all that moisture. It's already looking lovely and glossy, which is really important because that's what we want. I mean, if I was to boil this too strongly, it wouldn't look so glossy. So that's how you know you've got a really good mix. It's got a lovely shine on it, which is fantastic. So now let's think about adding some eggs to it. I have had people ask me, what if you don't want to add eggs in? This would be the point where you would add either a flax seed egg made from flaxseed or a chia seed egg. If you would like to know how to make that, I would suggest that you just Google how to make a flaxseed egg or how to make a chia seed egg. That would mean that you've completely avoided adding any animal products, which some people definitely want to do. So that is how you get around that. Or maybe you can't eat eggs. If you can eat eggs, this is when you add 2 of them and you give them a little bit of a whisk up, just like this. And then they'll just go, once you've got kind of the white mixed through really well, and then we're just going to add that straight into our fruity mix. And as well as that, the last things we're going to be adding in, once again, you can decide what ingredient you want to use here. I'm going to be using some almond flour, but you could use any type of nut flour or any type of seed flour that you'd like to add at this point. If you want to go nut free, feel free to do that as well. But for this portion, which is kind of like our flour, I guess, for want of a better word, this is going to be our flour. So for this portion, you want to add in 140 grams, which is about 5 ounces of whatever flour you choose to add here. And yeah, whatever you add is going to be delicious. I'm using almonds. I like almonds, but you don't have to use almonds if you don't want, of course. And the last ingredient that we're going to be popping into here is we're going to be popping in a little bit of baking powder. So a teaspoon of baking powder. And one last, I wasn't being honest. I forgot to add in the baking soda. So we're going to put in half a teaspoon of baking soda, or a pinch of baking soda is going to go in there as well. So that's all the ingredients done. All we need to do now is give it a bit of a stir together. Oh, I like that sound. I like that sound it's making. I really like the smell. I mean, I am definitely a person who loves this time of year because I love this cake. And I've already made 4 of them so far in the last couple of days. So now, after making these 2, I'm going to have 6. I mean, I don't plan on eating them all. I will be giving them away. Yeah, I do love Christmas cake. For me, it's just, or fruit cake. It is just so wonderful. Look at how moist that is. It's such a beautiful mixture. So at this point, of course, we go back to our tin. And we're just going to plonk everything into the tin there. It is going to, like I said, it's going to make a decent sized cake because I've got such a small tin. In fact, I'm looking at it going, are you sure it fits in here, Bridge? Because it's going to be a gorgeous size. So what I normally do is I will, using this size tin, is I will make 3 times the recipe. And out of 3 times the recipe, I will actually get 4 decent sized fruit cakes using this size tin. But because I'm using the whole mixture in this time, I'm going to have one huge one. But that's fine. Gosh, it's going to be good. Look at that. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. All right, so we know that our oven is on at 150 degrees Celsius, which is 200. Oh, sorry. Let's start that again. We've got to get the temperature right. It is on at 120 degrees Celsius, 120, which is 250 degrees Fahrenheit. You just want to kind of gently smooth off the top just a little bit. And you're going to pop your cake into the oven, 120, remember. And this is going to take, depending on the size of your cake tin, this could take anywhere from 3 hours to bake up to 5 hours to bake. Because if it's like, you know, taller but not as wide, it will take longer to bake. So just be aware of that. If it's wider but shorter, it's going to take less. Anywhere between 3 to 5. I know that's a big time variation. But it's quite easy to tell when your cake's cooked. So off to the oven we pop, remember, 120 degrees. This one here, because it's so tall, this will take 5 hours. Most definitely take 5 hours. I've done it enough times now to know it's going to take the whole 5 hours. And how I know it's cooked is because, firstly, the colour that comes from a fully cooked cake. Now look at this tin. This has got pukekos on it. This one's got pukekos on it. So anyone in, I actually think there's pukekos in Australia as well, but anyone in New Zealand knows exactly what that swamp bird is, the old pukeko. And this tin, this particular tree, we call this the New Zealand Christmas tree because it does bloom right around about Christmas time. So it's absolutely gorgeous. And I've got my cake sitting in it. And here we go. Look at the colour. Oh, it is so dark. It is not burnt. It is that dark, but it is not burnt. What you actually have is just, look at that, is the most moist and decadent cake you could look at. It's still quite damp because I've only just cooked them a couple of days ago. But what you're looking for when the cake has cooked is you will notice that you will obviously be firm up the top. You'll be able to poke a stick into it. It'll come out completely dry. But what you'll also notice is that it really deepens. It really deepens in colour. And that's when you know that this cake is just perfect. It is a dark, decadent cake. I want to cut it. I probably shouldn't. I mean, this really needs about another couple of weeks, but I'm going to cut it anyway. So I want to show you guys what it looks like on the inside. It's still going to be very moist, but it is just absolutely wonderful. All right, pop you over there. Pop you down. So this one, remember how I said that I make 3 times the recipe and I get 4 of these size cakes? This is a little bit smaller than the one I just popped in the oven. The one I popped in the oven is probably going to end up by being about that tall, as you can see. So it's going to be quite a bit higher than this cake here. But you can still get, you know, 4 smaller ones out of it. I think I weighed this off as about 1.2 kilos, which is about 2.5 pounds. That's what the cake weighs. All right, let's get into the slicing. So you can see what we have in the middle. It's just, look how moist that is. It is just phenomenal. Like, that's why I've said in the past that this cake could actually double as a pudding as well. If you wanted to serve it warm with, you know, with a lovely dairy-free custard, you could totally do that as well because it is so moist. But if you want it to be cake-like, then this is when patience starts to come to play. And you are going to be wrapping it ideally in baking paper. That is going to help to keep it moist, but also to help it to mature. And then my ideal place to mature it for about 4 to 5 weeks is in my lovely Pukeko tin. And then I put that away from myself.
And myself.
Oh, and Mahi. And Mahi. I put that away from me and from Mahi, who's over there, because we will eat half of it in one go if you let us, because it's that gorgeous. But it is worth waiting for. And of course, next week, Monday, we start our 28-day boost camp. And it's a 4-week program. So I don't have to think about this for 4 weeks. That's why I'm making it this week. If you're joining us on the 28-day boost camp, make your cake now. Because when the camp's over, you've got cake ready to go. See? Perfect timing, right? Absolutely perfect timing. Absolutely perfect cake. I thank Mahi's mum, Priscilla, for giving me the honor of looking after and protecting this recipe and now sharing it with you guys in our healthy version, which she absolutely loves. Loves the fact that I was able to get rid of the sugar and the gluten and the grain. She thinks it's marvelous. So I'm going to be sending her, hope she's not watching, she's getting a cake sent to her for Christmas to say thank you from Mahi and I. I hope you've enjoyed this class. We've got another couple of classes coming up this week. It's not too late to join our boost camp. All you need to do is go to www.28dayboostcamp.com and you can join us. It's not too late. We start on Monday and you can join us. And we're going to do a bit of Q&A. Yes, we've got a question, Mahi.
Robin's so for a 20 centimetre tin, do we use the mountain recipe or do we double it?
No, for a 20 centimetre tin, I wouldn't double it unless you've got a really high tin, because it does make about 1.2 kilos worth of cake. It's decent, but you're probably only going to need it in the oven for maybe 3 hours just because it's wider. It will be quicker to cook. It'll still be amazing. It'll be amazing. And chances are, if you've got a wider cake, you're going to get to eat it sooner because it's not going to take as long to mature as my one will. So yeah, you're probably going to be in luck there, Robin, I reckon. Do we have any more questions? No. Remember, even though we're not doing Q&A Fridays anymore, this is your opportunity straight after the class. We'll actually be doing Q&As now, just in case.
Which book is it in?
Which book is this in? Oh, this recipe is in Bridget's Healthy Christmas. No. Yes. Forgotten. It's the Christmas ebook. It is a Christmas ebook that we released last year. If you want a PDF copy of that, it is in the Christmas ebook. But don't forget, I just adjusted it ever so slightly. So we're using fiber syrup, of course. We're using erythritol, of course. And I have included the wonderful possibility of making it with tea, like a yogi tea or a lemon ginger tea, instead of just making it with water. So Karen asked, how much almonds? So any type of flour that you put in, Karen, whether it be almonds or walnut flour or sunflower seed flour or pumpkin seed flour, is 100 and, checking my recipe, 40 grams, which is 4.9 ounces of your flour of choice. Now, if you're going, I'm just going to make it with gluten, it's not going to work. It's going to be really gluey. That quantity is not, you can't swap out plain flour for it. It's not designed for that. I've adjusted the flour quota, so that literally is the quantities for gluten-free flours. sneaky. But almond flour, like I said, any of your nut or seed flours works really, really well in that recipe as well. So thank you guys for joining me today. It has been my pleasure to share with you one of my favorite cakes in the entire world. It's one of the only cakes that actually makes me like I feel this lump in my, I've got it right now when I'm talking to you guys. My saliva glands start to work and I feel this lump in the back of my throat because this is the cake that I crave. This is a cake that I absolutely love. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have time before the 28-day boost camp to get your cakes underway because it's going to be perfect for when you finish. Your cake's going to be matured, you're going to be looking amazing, and you're going to be all ready for Christmas. So thanks for joining me, guys. I will see you, today is Tuesday, I will see you on Thursday back here in the kitchen for a very exciting class. We are making Bridget's, that's me, Bridget's biscuits. So I have a scone recipe that I'm calling Scone 2.0. They're gluten and grain free. Of course, they're all the dairy frees and all the all the sugar frees and all that sort of stuff as well. But they are to die for. I'm going to teach you guys how to make Bridget's biscuits on Thursday back here in the kitchen. All right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful, beautiful evening, and we'll talk to you and see you really, really soon. Bye.